Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am back for politics. You thought that you Republican punk asses was going to get me out of it? No way. The progressive movement moves on. And in today's show, what are we covering? The lies about this big, ugly tax bill. We're going to cover that. We're also going to cover why do marginalized groups vote against their interests? We give them secret nicknames in our community. We call them turncoats. We'll discuss that. And we will also cover why are we using taxpayer money to pay Ashley Babbitt. And joining me today to get this message across that is going to be rooted in facts, big homie from TikTok, emerging growing TikToker named Claire is going to join me. Lamont Tyson, Politics of Being Black in America show starts right now.
I'm up early for the dealers come out. Everybody is outside till the killers come out. You ain't eating, you just act full. I'm impactful. Dozen funerals in a month. I got that pull. I will give it to niggas in all rap forms. Ignatius out right now on all platforms.
There she is, ladies and gentlemen. It is Claire. And whenever she comes to the show, we're going to call ourselves the Claremont Show. What's going on, Claire?
I'm so happy to be here. This is so exciting. This is like the biggest thing I've done ever since creating content of any kind. So I'm just happy to be here, happy to spread the good messages that we want to spread. And hopefully we can reach the people who need to hear these messages more than anything. So
absolutely. She nailed it, ladies and gentlemen. The goal with these are to spread the truth. Give the unredacted truth, and just try to spread the message of how progressive politics is better for the greater good of all Americans and not just the select few. Now, before we get going, I want you guys to make sure you hit the video description link because Claire's TikTok is a link in there so that you can go check her out. She does great TikToks almost daily. And for those of you that want to continue to shop in my Life Gain store, I done brought this t-shirt back. Since I was born in the 80s, back in my day, we had 9 planets, okay? Pluto wasn't a dwarf planet back in my day. And this has been very popular on my Shop Life Gains t-shirt store. So if you want to get one, go and grab 30 of them bitches. Miss Claire, whenever I have special guests on the show, I like to do a segment to break the ice called Politicking while being Black in America. But when I have a guest who's not in the Black community, I call it Politicking while living under MAGA. This segment is when you get to air any petty grievance you have while living under MAGA so that you can get it off your chest and get ready for an action-packed, entertaining, but informative and truthful debate. So having said that, what are you politicking on while living under MAGA?
it was really hard for me to pick one petty grievance, if I'm being honest. But with that said, I'm a waitress right now. I'm working my way through grad school.
Uh-oh, I know where this is going.
We both happen to live in North Carolina. We are deep in MAGA country. And I don't think a lot of patrons at my restaurant realize the power dynamic that we have, in that I pretty much have to smile and nod and agree with anything they say. Mm-hmm. Not completely, but pretty much to a certain degree. I have to tolerate whatever they're bringing in. And especially around the election, it was bad. We had people coming in groups wearing all red and like celebrating and like talking about it to their servers. I've had guests come in. One of them, it was super weird. He made a comment about politics and I didn't really hear him. And I leaned in. He was like, "You're not one of them blue hairs, are you?" What? So like using like derogatory slurs almost to reference liberal people or leftist people, however you want to phrase it, progressives. And then even last night, I had already picked this. And last night, a guy came in wearing the dark MAGA hat and like this shirt. He had the dark MAGA hat on and a shirt that it's called like the anatomy of a pew pew. And it's literally just a gun on his shirt. that had like a diagram of how it works and then MAGA like on the sleeve. And it's from the official MAGA store. Because I had to look it up. I was like, this is insane. And again, I see these people and I have to go, hi, how are you guys doing today? I'm over it. I really, and oh my gosh, the tax on tips stuff is, I'm so over it. At this point, I don't think it's ever going to happen. If it did happen, I'd be grateful. But either way, I would honestly much rather my taxes be going to good stuff and not, I mean, let me rephrase. If I'm going to get taxed on my tips, let's at least make it go somewhere good. If I'm going to get no tax on tips, but have to live under this administration, take my money. Like, I don't care. But the other day, a guy came in, and this was like a week ago, and he's like, I bet you and your coworkers are real thrilled about that no tax on tips coming your way. And I was like, yeah, I mean, no, that would be great if it ever happens. And he was like, oh, yeah, they're saying by June it should be rolling out. I'm like, right. Right, because this administration definitely lives up to their word. And yeah, so I'm over it. I am fed up. And just looking forward to maybe a profession in my future where I don't have to filter quite as much and I can be a little bit more authentic. And that's what this outlet is for, is being able to really put it all out there, not filtering myself, to make MAGA people comfortable.
Right. Well, I can understand how that would just pluck your last nerves. But my question is, do these people at the very least tip you well for the kind of bondage you have to be in while serving them living under MAGA rule?
No. No. I mean, it's hard to make a general rule about tipping because people surprise you. But I will say the times that I've had people who are very outwardly MAGA, and like so much so that I can feel it the second they sit down. I mean, not more so than anyone else, and very much like can be less. I mean, it very much depends on the person, but yeah, you would think that they're going around talking about tax on tips and trying to recruit more MAGAs, and then they see me, a white woman who doesn't have blue hair, and they're like, oh, she's one of us. Or they're like, we want her to be one of us. And I've actually had people back in the fall, and this was crazy. A Black woman came in, actually, and she ended up checking out twice. It was like she like signed the bill and then wanted another thing. And on both of the separate checks, she wrote at the bottom, "Make America Great Again, no tax on tips, heart, smiley face," or whatever. And literally did it twice. And she did tip me a lot for what it was. It was like maybe she bought a drink or two and tipped me $10 on each one.
Wow.
But I was like, what? Like, this is how you're going about like bringing politics into your life and like advocating for something? Like, this is what you've chosen as your like movement? I don't know. It's crazy, but yeah, it is really hard because I really do wish I could speak my truth. But honestly, the people who are like that and it's like their whole personality, my truth wouldn't make a difference. It would just be something for them to get excited to try to rebut and make me look bad or sound bad. But no matter how good my point could be, pretty sure it would go right over their head at that point. So
Right. Well, I commend you for having great composure and not getting into it with people because that is your place of work. And the last thing you want to do is have confrontations when you're just there to do your job. So I commend you. And one of these days we'll have to do a conversation about this whole facade of taxes on tips. And just to give people a little insight at what I mean, my guess is I'm not going to say her age, but I will say she's under the age of 35. I will say that. And usually, if you haven't been in business or you haven't learned some of the ways of how people get around taxes, you don't know this. And I'm definitely not saying she's doing this. But this was a no starter from jump because the average person that collects tips is not reporting the cash tips that they get in the first place. They only report the ones that are written on credit card. So it was really not that big of a starter. That was just used to make people feel like Trump is doing something extra to help the economy, when in reality he's not. If you really wanted to help the waitresses and people that live on tips, just get rid of the payroll tax on those individuals, but y'all can't do that. So I digress, but we'll have that conversation another day. Now, what I'm politicking while living under MAGA is something that is not political. You can't blame Trump for this one. Damn it, my birthday was May 7th. And any male who shares a birthday before Mother's Day can feel what I'm about to say. Damn it, I'm tired of sharing my birthday with Mother's Day. Damn it. I get 1 or 2 days, and the next thing you know is fucking Mother's Day, and my celebration is going. Damn you, Hallmark. Damn you, Hallmark Cattell, for messing up my birthday and the millions of men who have birthdays right before Mother's Day in May. Hallmark, be on the lookout. I'm going to create a card that says, make the days before Mother's Day a holiday. And that's my petty grievance. And I love you, Mama. I don't want no smoke. I don't want no smoke. But that's my petty grievance that I'm not really grieving, but it kind of yanks at you. So what we've done is we've learned to incorporate my birthday with Mother's Day. That's what we do. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Post your comments. Let us know what are your petty grievances that you would like to discuss, and we will get into some of the subjects we want to cover. My esteemed guest, Claire B., had a couple of things she wanted to cover. She wanted to cover why marginalized groups vote against their interests and the definitions we put on some of those marginalized groups. She also wanted to talk about something that we've started seeing and hearing a lot since Trump's first term, gaslighting, in particular, men gaslighting women. I'm bringing to the table today, ladies and gentlemen, the tax bill, things that people like that they're trying to get rid of in the tax bill, and then what's bad in the tax bill, and this bitch Ashley Babbitt's family getting $5 million in taxpayer money, while the people that rioted with her, that Trump pardoned, how about they're going back to jail, which tells you all about their character from jump. So having said those things, Claire B., which one of these would you like to cover first? Oh, she also has a tidbit on RFK too, because ladies and gentlemen, he does not have a medical background. I hope y'all know that.
Not even close. Not even remotely. Not like he even started med school and dropped out. Like, nope, nothing of the sort.
He never took biology. Now I'm lying. I don't know that, but I'm just going to dramatize it out. I don't know if he took chemistry and biology.
There's no proof.
We don't know. Yeah. Show us the papers, damn it. Show us the papers. So Claire, which one of these do you want to go with first?
Man, I think we'll start. I would love to talk about the gaslighting because, I mean, it really ties into everything that MAGA is and does. And I also had kind of an interesting connection with my background with psychology that I wanted to add to it. We do have a TikTok video that would be great to show now, and then we can kind of unpack it a little bit.
All right, she's got it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to show this TikTok video. She's going to get into why her education and background specifically deals with people gaslighting and how you can be aware of when it plays out in your life and from politicians. Take a look at this.
He didn't say that, and if he did, he didn't mean it, and if he did, it's not illegal, and if it is, everyone's doing it, and if they're not, she did something way worse.
Mm. Claire, the floor is yours. Talk to us.
All right. So much in so few words. I mean, that clip is mega viral right now, for good reason. But this has been like one of the main talking points, or I don't know, processes of explaining things for MAGA since the first president's for his first term. But either way, it's so exhausting to watch people use tactics that are textbook narcissistic manipulation on a large scale and people not even recognizing it. I recognize that I do have a background in this. So I do have a degree in psychology, and I'm currently working on my master's in clinical mental health counseling. So I have done a lot of studying on this type of stuff, but it really is textbook gaslighting. And there's also something called DARVO that I think is really interesting that I'd like to tie into this.
What's that?
So DARVO stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse, Victim, and Offender. So it's like a go-to acronym for people to use if they think they might be getting like emotionally manipulated by someone. And I'm going to phrase it in the terms of like the abuser, because this is typically in a situation where it's like narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse. But again, like we're seeing, it doesn't necessarily have to be a relationship between someone for people to use these tactics. You can use it on any stage. You can be a politician using it, just speaking to the public.
At work, possibly like a boss or something like that.
Yeah, a boss could do, anyone you know can do this to you. Friends, hey, you can have narcissistic friends. It's definitely not isolated to just relationships, close relationships, intimate relationships. It's narcissists. They don't discriminate. They use this everywhere. But the verbiage I have is more like the abuser, the victim. Right. So deny, the D in DARVO, is the abuser denies the abuse, often minimizing or trivializing it or claiming it never happened. They may also use gaslighting to make the victim question their memory or sanity. This is the "he didn't say that" part of that video. So you see anyone in MAGA, and you see Trump do this all the time, just lying. Just there's video footage of him saying or doing something, and then he gets questioned about it. And again, there's video footage of it, and he goes, "I didn't say that." But you did. What do you mean? You can't just. And it's documented. And in this big old year we're in, 2025, you can't dodge it. You can't dodge responsibility when we literally have evidence of you doing it, but they just do it all the time. So there's the deny part. And then next, typically the abuser shifts the focus to the victim's character, accusing them of lying, being overly sensitive. That's a big one for MAGA. Having ulterior motives, or even asserting that the victim was the abusive one in the first place. So deny, then attack. And that is, and if he did, he didn't mean it. So basically, they are manipulating your perspective, your worldview, so that your truth and your reality, no matter how real it feels to you, it's not real. I had a personal relationship that was pretty emotionally abusive, and long time ago, we've definitely healed from it, but he loved to use the word delusional. And I think it is such a perfect representation of this, the attack and the deny. Because if whoever you're talking to is quote unquote delusional, they can't say anything that has merit. That you have taken away their voice, essentially, when it comes to your dynamics in an argument or a debate or a conversation. And I see MAGA do this all the time. Snowflakes, sensitive, soft, grow up, however they want to attack your truth, your reality, F your feelings. Like, okay, that doesn't mean that what I'm saying doesn't matter just because you don't care. And then the last part is reverse victim and offender. So the abuser portrays themselves as the victim, claiming they are being unfairly accused or mistreated. They may even suggest that the victim has a vendetta against them or is trying to ruin their reputation. Fake news. She did something way worse. If it's illegal, everyone's doing it. So all of a sudden, you were coming at me and trying to hold me accountable, and this is also gaslighting. And now I'm going to talk about either your reaction to what I've done or a completely different topic that somehow removes blame from me or from the party or the person with which I identify or support. So
And
anyway,
that can be a little bit of like whataboutism.
whataboutism, it all fits into this world, this realm of not facts, where if you are not dealing with facts, and that is not your focus or your main concern, this is your playbook. This is your playbook because this is how you convince people that something's happening that factually is not, or it may be happening, but we don't have proof of it. So a lot of cult leaders, this is their textbook.
Pastors.
Yep. It can go, I mean, any power dynamic where someone is trying to assert power over someone and they recognize that the victim or the powerless person in this situation has a grievance, has something that they've identified that's wrong, that the person in power has done. They're most of the time not going to admit to what they've done. They're going to use any of these tactics to deflect, change the subject, put it back on you. And it's just so crazy to watch it happen on a large scale like this, because when it's one-on-one, it feels controllable. It feels like, okay, yes, I have, my partner is emotionally awful and toxic and manipulative, but at least when I go to work, I don't have to deal with it. Right. Or at least when I'm with my girlfriends, I'm away from him. But when you're seeing it in the White House, in Congress, in the Senate, in all of these places where the truth and the law should be paramount and should, be more valued than talking points and just denying and it's like when we talk about the immigration and we get on that issue, and it was like in the debates when Trump's like, they're eating cats and dogs. What does that have to do with the actual issue we're talking about? It's just reversing victim and offender. It's like we're talking about, oh, these are immigrants that need our help. They're cannibals. They're crazy. It's just this crazy fear mongering that again is doing the same thing that we're seeing in that video, that TikTok I just showed. It's denying. It's diverting attention away from the issues that matter. They want to talk about trans people. They want to talk about these niche situations that, I mean, in the large scale are not as big of an issue. Hey, these are issues that are very important, but that they'll focus in on like cats and dogs being eaten. And it's like, I'm sorry. We have way bigger fish to fry here. And you're just deflecting so that we don't ever have time to get to the meat of this issue. So yeah, obviously I'm very, very passionate about this, but I'm so over watching people do what is to me just textbook bullshit manipulation, and their followers going.
So, well said, Claire. And that's going to bring me to 3 points. And I'm going to be very honest with my audience. I've learned a lot of things from my grandmother. And one thing my grandmother taught me was sometimes the things you hate the most, if you're not careful, you will become those things. And ladies and gentlemen, I am guilty of gaslighting one time in my life to circle of people I have in my life that I care for, adore, and love. And I'm going to bring 2 extra points into this. One thing is masculinity, and the other thing is the individuals who buy into this gaslighting, where it comes from. So number 1, there's this big talk about masculinity in America, what it takes to be masculine. One trait that I feel like you must have to be masculine is when you realize you've done something wrong, apologize, admit that you've done wrong, and do the work to rectify it so that it doesn't happen again. And that's what happened with me. I had to realize I was doing wrong. And I became I hate people that don't believe in truth. I hate people that deflect. And I actually became that. And I had to admit to individual that I was wrong. I'm getting work done to help me overcome this, and it won't happen again. To me, that's a foundation of masculinity. And we don't have a lot of masculine men in power right now that are willing to do that. Number two, individuals sit around and from society, whether it's TV, whether it's social media, or usually your politicians, they soak this shit up from white men who, I'm not saying they're the only ones who do it, but perniciously, the only people you see in mass numbers doing it is white guys. And the only people you seem to see get away with it most of the time are white guys. And the people that they're doing this to are letting them get away with it, which is why we're having this conversation, so that you can see when it's coming, so that you know to protect yourself from it. And in my experience, what I have learned, when someone does you wrong, lies to you, or hurts you, the closer you get to the truth, the more they'll start gaslighting. I mean, they'll turn that bitch up like a gas stove. Swoosh. The gaslighting gets high as hell because you're getting closer to the truth. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a gut feeling, don't doubt yourself, search for the truth, and then make a determination about what that person is saying, which we don't see enough from the people that are easily gaslighted by the Republican Party and others. Last point I want to talk about, when you encounter gaslighting from the political spectrum, it makes it seem like that behavior is okay. And I'm not saying I'm not going to say that all the people that do the gaslighting are men, but it certainly seems like the majority of people that are doing gaslighting are men. And sometimes they try to cover up this gaslighting under a cloak of something you're not supposed to argue against. And usually that is the Bible and Christian religion. And having said that, you guys let us know what you think. Good subject, Claire. Very, very good subject. I mean, I think, ladies and gentlemen, Claire might have a big career on social media getting people to come in and talk. One of these days, we'll see. So good one, Claire. Good one. Now I'm going to take you to one of mine. People already know my background is business, stocks, real estate, script writing. People already know that about me. So a lot of my perspective when we're dealing with America comes from how can we help everyone positively live a fruitful life where they're not too stressed about their finances and everybody's able to live a certain quality of life that's not poverty. I'm big on that. And right now, the pendulum has shifted to where 70% of all the wealth in this nation belong to the top 10% of people making money. That's ridiculous. And so that's why we get into this tax bill, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show you a clip. I got two clips. One is going to be Trump talking about the tax bill, and then we're going to come back and talk about how it hurts people and things that people like that they're trying to get rid of. Then we're going to talk about the up-to-date information that happened today, where we had a House congressman from Texas do exactly what Claire B just said, which was lie to you in your face. And it brings up another way people gaslight that they try to teach me when I was 5 years old back in 1986. So take a look at this one first, ladies and gentlemen, as we look at Trump and how his tax bills and things he's done have trashed the economy.
Trump tax rocks Target. A worker on Reddit exposed price hikes, and this is where the consumer is paying for the Trump tax. Another headline, small business owners suing Dawn for damages. Another headline, mortgage rates rise above 7% and the U.S. dollar slumps. Citi CEO, something deeper is going on, and this pertains to the economy. Dalio, it's worse. Diamond of Chase Bank warns markets underestimating the risk. Moody's cuts deposit ratings at major banks, and even the Smithsonian loses its credit ratings. I was promised 90 deals in 90 days. Let's check in. 0 deals. Number of legally binding trade agreements signed by the Trump administration, 0. But they get on TV all day, every day and talk about Joe Biden because that's all they have. Next up, we have the consequences on Republicans' bill to increase debt and lower credit ratings for the United States. Thomas Massey tweets, the big, beautiful bill will add $20 trillion of federal debt over 10 years, and that's according to the authors of it. But there's another huge problem. It will increase the price of the $36 trillion of debt we already have, as bond buyers realize we aren't fiscally responsible. And everybody knows Moody's cuts America's pristine credit rating, citing rising debt.
Claire, there's something that when you get to be older, my age, and past that you might not see. You might not see Social Security because this government has pilloried that fund and they keep increasing debt over and over and over again. And one thing Trump is trying to do in this tax bill of his is he really wants to increase the debt ceiling beyond anything we've ever seen, like the highest debt ceiling of any president ever, in order for there to be tax breaks for the top 10% that we just mentioned already control all of the wealth. And how are they willing to do that? Well, first, let's take a look at what's in this tax bill, ladies and gentlemen. Let me show you what's in there. We've got some pros for the middle class. Increased child tax credit. Raise the child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,500 through 2028. Sounds okay, but in the grand scheme, the way people have been suffering since COVID, you can do a lot better for our American people. Higher standard of deductions. Increase the standard of deductions by $1,000 for individuals, $2,000 for married couples. MAGA savings account. Now, this one right here should alarm people. Introduces money accounts for growth and investment. MAGA savings account provide $1,000 per child. Encourage savings. I'm gonna pull it down for a minute. Are you familiar with Trump starting a Trump coin, a meme coin?
Yeah. Yep.
And did you hear how it went up in flames? Did you hear how some 800,000 people invested all their good money into that?
Mm-hmm.
And it was somewhere like 55 people made $1 million or more off of it, and everybody else got burnt. That's what happened in that tax bill. I mean, in that meme coin. So we are supposed to entrust Trump with anything slapped with MAGA on it? No way. Let me give you a little bit more context. They're going to try to, this is what it's going to do for the rich. Extension of the 2017 tax cuts. Permanently extend tax cuts from 2017 from the Jobs Act, which disproportionately benefit high income earners. What did I just say? We've already seen since 1980, trickle-down economics doesn't benefit anyone but the top 10%, not the middle class. Increase SALT deductions cap. Raise the state and local tax deduction from $10,000 to $30,000, providing greater tax relief to residents in high tax states. All right. Corporate tax benefits. Maintains and enhances tax breaks for corporations, including deductions for research and development and capital investment. Estate tax exemptions. Continues increase estate tax exemptions, allowing wealthy individuals to pass more wealth tax-free. And in conclusion, let me give you the conclusion of all this filthiness. While the One Big Beautiful Bill Act offers certain tax benefits for middle-class income Americans, it also proposes significant cuts to social programs that could adversely affect low-income households. This bill provisions largely favors high-income individuals and corporations, raising questions about fiscal and equity responsibility. Now, Claire, I'm going to let you jump in on this. But before I do, I want to show you a list of the most popular programs that the government has ever put out. And each one of these programs is on the chopping block. So, number one, let me show you this. Here are the top 5 most popular federal programs in the U.S. Number one, Social Security, which unless we do something, Claire, you're never going to get a piece of that. And you paid into it. That's the harsh part. You're paying into it now. I paid into it. Every American pays into it. Medicare. They are getting ready to try to slash that a couple of $1 billion. And then we move on. The Inflation Reduction, created in 1944 by FDR. What does it do? Provide education, housing, and business loan benefits to veterans. Republicans claim they love veterans. I always say, no, you don't, because instead of just telling these people that work for governments and the military, thank you for your service, how about we pay them? How about we fix the VA? How about we increase the wages we give to these people that are sacrificing? But I'll get back to that in a minute. Deep partisan support for decades. Wyatt's love helped build the American middle class, seen as repaying veterans for their service. They're trying to cut that too. And then again on this list, Medicaid, created in 1995, provides health coverage for low-income Americans. Popularity, around 75 to 80% approval, even among conservative voters in red states. Wyatt's love helps children, seniors, and people with disabilities afford health care. Supplemental nutrition program, another one that is the highest thing they're trying to chop down. Created in 1964. What does it do? Offer purchasing assistance for low-income people. Popularity, look at this, 65 to 70%. Why is it loved? Reduces hunger and stimulates local economies by increasing grocery purchases. Having given you all that data, and I know it was a lot I threw at you, tell me, how do you feel about what they're trying to do to these programs and Trump's big, ugly tax bill?
All right. So I'm a little limited in terms of my financial knowledge, my tax knowledge, all of that. But from what I do know, these programs are what government is for. Right. It's the same reason we need a fire department. Like, we need all of our money to be pulling together to create these safety nets for ourselves. How did we get out of the Great Depression? The New Deal. What is the New Deal? Socialism. A lot of socialism. A lot of us saying we need to use our wages, pool them together, and make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity. And what I can't fathom beyond what we're talking about is we already don't have healthcare here.
Right.
We already have the worst healthcare system among all of the nations in the world that have wealth anywhere comparable to our wealth. And that you're trying to further cut it down. It's so it's just backwards. It's disappointing, and it's confusing. It's confusing because where else is we're all paying lots in taxes. Where else is it going? It's going to defense. It's going to tax cuts for people who actually are the least needy of them in the entire country. It's going to corporations who, again, don't need the cuts. And it really infuriates me how many working class, blue collar, MAGA people think that he's the money man for them. Look at who he surrounds himself with. Look at his cabinet. Look at his besties. They're not us. They're not middle class. They're not working class. They're not even upper middle class. They are billionaires, mega millionaires. And why do you somehow think, imaginary MAGA person, that he is advocating for you based on his track record and based on who he surrounds himself with and based on his own personal interest? He is among those people who has extreme wealth and only wants to make more. And it's greedy and it's shameful. It's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. I spent some time abroad in Spain. I was actually a Spanish major in college as well with my psychology. And Obama went to Spain to basically study their healthcare system. And he tried to implement it with a lot of Medicare, Obamacare, a lot of our health system, and learned a lot from the way that they've structured it. But it is definitely very socialist. You don't pay for ambulances in Spain. You don't pay for childbirth. You pretty much everything's free. And they do also have private healthcare so that if there's long waits in their public healthcare system, you can pay. And again, what they're paying is probably, I don't even know, 100th of what we pay here for private healthcare. So even then, it's very affordable. And I actually worked at a facility with people who were infected with AIDS, and none of them had jobs. None of them had family members who supported them. And they all got free antiretroviral medication, which is some of the most expensive medication in the world. And anytime one of them was short of breath, they call an ambulance. And I had to explain to them that in the US, unless it is literally life or death, people don't really call ambulances. We drive people to the hospital because you're not going to want to pay for that bill. Even if you have insurance, it's not worth it. My sister actually was in high school and a girl had a seizure in the hallway, and she ended up calling, she was like 16. This girl's having a grand mal seizure, and she ended up calling 911, like trying to get paramedics and an ambulance there, because she was like, what do I do? And this girl's dad shows up and is like, why'd you call an ambulance? Why'd you call an ambulance? We can't afford an ambulance.
Damn.
That is so sad that that's our reality. This was a man who was definitely upper middle class. He was not working class. He could have afforded it. But here in the US, your child can be in a medical emergency, and one of your first thoughts is, can I afford the ambulance? That's insane. And then on top of that, they're trying to further restrict our access to basic healthcare, baseline. So I just think it's shameful. I think it's dirty. I think that we as Americans deserve better. And I think we've put the money and the work in. We should be receiving the benefits.
Right.
It's not like we're a poor nation who can't afford it in the first place. We're just not allocating the resources in that direction. So, yeah, it's shameful.
Before I show you what happened today, because they did pass 1/3 of this bill, it's gotten through the House. House member Chip Roy from Texas was talking about it. And in real time, he did a form of gaslighting using jargon that white people have been doing for years. White people in the MAGA realm, ladies and gentlemen, GOP realm, not all white people. I don't think I need to say that, but I'm going to say it. But I will say this about everything Claire said. Yeah, it's a travesty. But again, this falls on the American electorate for either being dumb, uneducated, or just wanting to go with their emotional instincts. Because Kennedy said something that I wish he wouldn't have said. He said this grand statement that said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for the country. That was totally bullshit. Because at the end of the day, the country is pulling tax money from everyone, whether they vote or not. This country was established, and government is established to provide security, safety, and the ability for everyone to have some quality of life that is set forth by the government. That is their job. And to defend the nation, that is their job. And somehow along the way, the Republican Party has been able to corrupt that mindset and get people to feel like you shouldn't use the government, and make you feel bad about using the government, make you have some kind of pride in not getting help, which is another problem. And then on top of that, they'll have you believe that when you see people getting help from the government, it's socialism. But this is the dirty secret they don't tell you, ladies and gentlemen. While they are sitting here making you feel bad that people who use the government are doing socialist deeds, they forget to tell you what the hell are the corporations and the rich people's doing behind your back every time they put a new facility, big facility in your community. They get a tax break up front. They get tax money up front. Then they don't pay taxes for 10 years. Don't tell nobody, but that's socialism. It's just that they don't want your ass to use the socialism, but that's socialism. Trump giving Ashley Babbitt's family $5 million. That's socialism, ladies and gentlemen, of their choice. And it should be socialism that benefits everybody, not the people that can take care of themselves. It should never be like that. And if I get into office one day, I don't give a damn how much Amazon wants to move in my community. Whatever allotment of money that you was going to try to give them, give it to the middle class mom and pop people that have been living in the community, holding it up for years and ain't never got nothing. I'll say that.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So I grew up right outside of DC, and my mom did as well. My mom, when she was growing up, the majority of the people she knew were government workers. They were military, they were government workers, they were teachers. They were kind of what you would expect for people who are willing to accept a lower wage based on what their background is. They could go private sector, but they maybe have a passion for public service. And they also get the benefits of the security of government. All of the healthcare benefits, your retirement benefits. That was a big drawing for a lot of people who wanted to go into government. And the Republicans have completely screwed that shit up. They fired so many people. And I also noticed growing up for me, and this is even before MAGA, and this just tells you how much, regardless of which party you're a part of, our country prioritizes wealth and corporations above all else, is I remember growing up, I had some friends whose parents were government, like mine. Both my parents worked for the government in different sections, like areas of the government. But I had a lot of friends whose parents were lobbyists. And my mom didn't really have that growing up. I had a lot of friends whose parents were developers, who were buying up land in DC, in Fredericksburg and Alexandria and all of these areas, especially if they're historically Black communities or Hispanic communities. They were like, oh, well, these people, they can't afford their rent. We're just going to buy it all up. And so there's a weird shift that you can see from generation to generation, from my mom being born in the 60s and me being born much later. Right. The difference in our generations and what's drawing people to Washington. A lot of my friends' parents were drawn to Washington because of greed. Because one of my best friend's fathers, he was like a spokesperson, a lobbyist for Toyota. So if Toyota decides that, we don't want to advocate for electric vehicles because we don't want to do that, he's going to go and he's going to bother every single person in Congress because he has all the time in the world and that's his job. And they're going to pay him top dollar to go and harass all of the people we've elected to protect us. And they're getting just unfair representation, obviously. And the more you pay, the more people you can go send to bother our representatives until they cave. And regular working class Americans, middle class, even upper middle class, we don't have time to go sit on Capitol Hill and bother people. And so there's literally more representation in the government based on the amount of money that you have. And then we're further giving tax cuts to these people. So I just think, regardless of party as well, America needs to get over our obsession with corporate greed, putting corporations above small businesses, individuals, because we are all being negatively impacted by this, unless you are one of the Shark Tank people, unless you're a billionaire, then this doesn't apply. But again, applies to pretty much everyone else, pretty much every other person, and the same people who are defending the billionaires and voting for them. So that's my 2 cents. But
I've always said that the richer you are, the more your vote counts versus someone who doesn't have that money, because not only do you get to vote, but you also get to provide the money that backs lobbyists to set the narrative for how people vote or who they vote for. That's been something I've been saying for a long time, and a conversation that we'll have to have another day. We need to get money out of politics anyway. It's nasty. It's wrong.
Disgusting.
It doesn't help. It does not make it fair for the greater majority of everybody that's what's going on. And we'll have that discussion another day. Let me finish this last portion
Yeah. Go
of
for
what
it.
happened today as they're trying to get this tax bill together. They are absolutely gutting Medicaid. And this is going to be another example of gaslighting. And I'll crystallize the picture for you when you hear Chip Roy just straight lie on TV because he knows that the base is not that smart. Listen to this, and then I'll give you the facts.
But we still haven't addressed the fundamental fraud, the scam that is the combination of the 90% FMAP along with the provider taxes, which for those, if you're watching this, you don't know what all that means. It's basically saying that we give 7 times more money for the able-bodied than the vulnerable. That's not President Trump's message. That's not what the American people want. So I think we can make those changes. We've been educating the Senate and the House during this process. The Senate's very interested in dealing with these issues.
Lord have mercy, y'all. Fake ass, great value Jesse Ventura just sat there and lied through his damn teeth. And Claire, this is a form of gaslighting I've seen white guys in particular do since I was a child.
Me too.
They use big words, jargonistic language that they know the average person is not going to want to look up. And back in my day, Claire, we didn't have the internet. You had to get an encyclopedia, or you had to take your ass in there and get a dictionary to figure it out. And so let me show you the jargon he just used and then lied to you about specifics of what he said. Here we go. Look at this. As you can see, it says this is talking about the data that says 7 times more funding goes to able-bodied adults than it does to those who need it. It's just a lie. It's a patent lie. And let me read this for you in plain words. It says, according to Medicaid spending eligibility, seniors age 65 plus average spending per enrollee is about $18,923. Individuals with disabilities average per enrollee about $18,000. Non-disabled adults average spending per enrollee $6,000, and children average spending $3,000. Claire, what did that man just say?
Pretty much the opposite of that.
Pretty much. That man just said that there's more spending going on for people who don't need it than those do need it. And you see the tops. Let me read to you guys the very top line so that you know that this is not fake. No, the assertion that Medicaid provides 7 times more funding to able-bodied adults than to those who need it most is inaccurate. In reality, Medicaid allocates a significantly amount higher of funding per enrollee to seniors and individuals with disabilities. All right, and let me show you one more piece of data so that you guys can go, and when you have these debates, you've gotten the facts on what's going on. Second part about Chip Roy, and this is the conclusion and the misconceptions about able-bodied adults, because this is a Republican talking point that they just made up. They gaslighted it and use it a jargon term so that their average base is not going to look it up, but we're not the average, and we're trying to teach you all to be better than the average. We've got tools now. This is not back in my day when we had 9 planets. Pull out your phone. Chat Donatello is what I call mine, but it's called Chat GPT, and look this shit up. Misconceptions. Some policies discussions have raised concerns that Medicaid expansion under the ACA, Obamacare, has led to disproportionate allocation of funds toward able-bodied adults. However, it's important to note that the higher federal matching rate for the ACA, 90%, compared to traditional Medicaid populations, 50 to 70%, may incentivize states to prioritize enrolling of non-disabled adults. Despite this, the per enrollee spending on non-disabled adults remains significantly lower than that for seniors and individuals with disability. Grand conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the claim that Medicaid provides 7 times more funding to able-bodied adults than it does to those who need it most is not supported. And when they talk about how states will use non-needing individuals, Claire, let me tell you exactly what states are doing that. all the red states, all the states that have the worst education, the Louisianas, the Mississippis, the Alabamas, the Oklahomas. That's where they're enrolling these people and profiting off of people using the ACA and then trying to blame it on Obamacare and Medicaid when their data is patently false.
And
Gaslighting.
where do they get these numbers 7 times? Like, where did you come up with? Did he just pull it out of his ass? Like,
It's called good old white male GOP gaslighting. He just pulled the shit out of his ass. I just gave
he's like,
you the
this will
fact.
sound good. I think that my following wants to hear something like this, so I'm just gonna say it. Like,
Mm-hmm. And what I've learned, because when I met Claire, I kind of told her about my background in business and how I learned business from a bunch of Republican white guys when they got drunk that would tell me all their little dirty secrets. And I pretended like I was drinking when I was really just taking notes. They all do this shit, Claire. They use jargon. They love to hear themselves speak. They have this big ego. They just say shit because they feel like the average person is not going to look it up. And usually in politics, when you're the GOP, your average person is not going to look it up. They're going to take you as gospel. They're going to think because you use a word that's got 10 syllables that you're smart. They might even think you're smart because you're in office. But look at what we got sitting in the White House. Having said that, I'll give you the last word on this one, Claire.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think that what brought a lot of people to MAGA was that Trump sounds like a toddler a lot of the time when he's talking.
Yeah.
He loves to dumb things down so much so that we're losing all of the necessary nuance. And then the people who follow him also know when to turn it up and when to be speaking in a way that their audience is not going to get it. But I think there's so many people who were like, oh, I hate politicians because I don't understand what they're saying half the time because all of them are highly educated. And then Trump came along and they're like, he's one of us. No, he is one of them and worse. He's one of the rich, educated people and he's dumb. So,
and he's a crook.
And he's a fraud. He's a fraudster. So, oh gosh, it's so exhausting. And I do have MAGA family. I have my grandparents are MAGA, my aunt and uncle, MAGA. And it is just so exhausting trying to explain to people that they are self-sabotaging. And that they're not even fully grasping what's going on, but they think it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, actually.
Right.
The more you know about something, the more you know that you don't know things. And they will get 3 talking points on something and they think they're an expert. And then the person who's actually an expert understands just how vast a topic is. And they're still going to be humble about it and say, even if they're an expert, I still don't know everything. And it's why a lot of times people will get in arguments with MAGA people and the MAGA people who are listening think the MAGA person's winning because they're shouting or they're talking over the other person. And they literally just can't even fathom what is actually being said. They just think winning an argument means like talking over someone, calling them names, like petty shit that you do when you're like in middle school arguing with people, not when you know how to debate and when you're educated. So it's just, it's exhausting trying to reason with people who I just don't think the wheels are turning fast enough.
Right. And that's why I agree with her. And that's why I say one of the biggest things the Democrats have got to hunker down and get done is the education system. Putting things in the education system that deal with critical thinking, facts, logic, start early, give the real history of this country so that those young minds that don't come to the table hating people, they come with love and want to be filled with knowledge, are filled with the correct knowledge and the best reasoning and deducing skills so that they don't succumb to this bull job. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to get worse. Now that we're doing AI, it's going to get worse. And you want a functional education system that can teach people how to decipher the truth from what's fake. Let us know what you guys think. Be sure to go and check out the Life Gain store. You can get that t-shirt. Be sure to go subscribe to Claire B. Her link is in description. And then just promote us so we can grow this message. Claire, because of time constraints, you've got 2 issues. Let's break it into one. Which one would you like to cover? RFK or why marginalized people love to vote against their interests?
Let's go into marginalized, because we've both talked about how we could do an entire show just on this, but
right,
man, oh man, it really bugs me. And RFK Jr., we can deal with him another day.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, I can just dive right into it.
Dive into it.
So we've talked about this many times, but we each have aspects of our identity that are privileged, aspects that aren't. Almost in reverse, black male, white female. And there are, I mean, we both have seen it in our own communities, people who who essentially advocate against their own interests, their own best interests. And I've always wondered, we call them pick-me's in my culture. And I've grown up watching actually a lot of white women, white friends even, self-identify more with their privileged aspects and seem to forget their femaleness when it's strategic, when they're going to get attention, even when they want to attract a guy's attention. Like, I don't really get it. But and then on the other side, you have like the Candace Owens, the Uncle Tom traditional trope. And so we really, and we could go on and on about this, but why does this happen? Is it a need for attention above all else? Is it wishful thinking that the oppressive class will overlook the less favorable aspects of your identity? I don't know. What do you think? And then I'll, dive in.
Okay. So a lot of it has to do with assimilating to what they think is power. And who has the money. And you're willing to do that regardless of how it hurts you, as long as you think that they will accept you into their group. And that brings up a lot of issues in the Black community, as she mentioned, Uncle Tom's. And I can even subdivide this into a lot of Black guys going MAGA. But before I do that, let me give an education on Uncle Tom, because Uncle Tom really didn't start out a pejorative. It was really about a book.
Yep.
And here's the information about the book. And then somehow over time, that book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, and the Tom portrayed in the book was a noble, self-sacrificing man, got misconstrued, which oftentimes happened in the white community, where they take Black words and Black issues and they make them bad. And they done the same thing with this. We had a video where we was talking about how they corrupt things like DEI, equity, black anger, whatever it is, they'll take it and just mess it up and use it for the ability to put us down and make it a pejorative. And we've seen a bunch of these Uncle Tom individuals, from whether it's this bum, Jason Whitlock, or whether it's this one, Candace Owens, or whether the ultimate of ultimate Uncle Toms, Clarence Thomas, who actually his Uncle Tomism actually has an effect on the American people. Huge effect on the American people. And the other thing that goes along with individuals that do this type of thing to assimilate to the people that they think are in power and wherever they're at, a part of them self-hates themselves. Because if you could wake up, look yourself in the mirror and say you are good enough, whether you're the party of power or not, you still can be in a place that claims everything is supposed to be equal on paper, and there's laws that are supposed to protect us, you wouldn't feel the need to try to assimilate the power. But you lack confidence in individual self, and then you want to try to assimilate the power. And usually when you get close to these people, they still do you wrong. They still do you wrong. An NBA player has all the money in the world. A Black cop pulls him in his Lamborghini and still treat him like shit. Period. You go to the courthouse. The legal system don't give a care. As a Black male, you got money. And what bothers me about Black men, and then I'll give the floor back to you for last comments, is that on top of this Uncle Tom thing that black men have been doing and going to MAGA, we also have this issue where black men are starting to feel left behind and going to MAGA because somehow, some way they think that MAGA is going to enforce something that makes them the head of the household or makes it so that women can be touched in the pussy, grabbed by the pussy, as a president once said, and there's not going to be any consequences for that. And they're also using the Bible to push this narrative that I must be the head of the household. And a lot of that has to do with, again, number one, not self-confidence and fear of this highly growing, educated female electorate that does not need them anymore, but makes the choice of picking a man that they want, which completely goes against Caroline Levitt. And having said that, that's my alley-oop to you about those type of women. Floor is yours.
And you know, I love this alley-oop. Man, oh man, it just rocks me to my core. I can't even begin to, I don't even know where to start. But yes, it is so disappointing watching people put their power in someone else's pocket and pretend that it's still theirs.
Right.
And act like they're the pocket owner.
Mhm.
Like their association to someone else automatically means that they are that person. And what, I mean, your commentary on masculinity, I do think that's something that I've really started to think deeply about. I don't know that the Democratic Party has not marketed itself, but I guess that's the best terminology I could use for men who do feel traditionally masculine. Because I think and it comes down to our societal definition of what is masculine. You said earlier in the episode, your idea of masculinity is owning up to what you've done wrong. I think a lot of men in this country would say that the most masculine thing you can do is stand on what you believe, no matter what, never back down. That to me isn't masculinity. Or men being violent, men being aggressive, that's not masculinity to me. Men being protective and nurturing and kind, like to me, that's a form of and I think it gets so tangled up with femininity that men will sometimes choose misogyny. And I think Black men, Hispanic men do this. They will choose misogyny over equality, true equity and equality. And it's because they're choosing to identify, I guess, more with their male side of their identity than with their Black or Hispanic or even gay, even any other thing that kind of minoritizes you. Actually, one of my friends in high school, one of my best friends, she's big MAGA right now. And one of her best friends is a Black gay man, and he literally works for the campaign. And I just I don't get it. I don't get how you can cherry pick what they're doing to conclude in any way, if you're a Black gay man, that what
You
the
want me?
Trump administration is doing is going to help you.
Let me give you some insight on that, because a lot of people, when they vote MAGA, they know, some of them know these things and they think it's not going to happen to me. Like a lot of MAGA government workers that, voted for Trump, and he told them what he was going to do. He told them he was going to let Elon take a hacksaw or whatever the hell he brought on stage that he know he's never used in his fucking life, and cut the budget. And then when they got cut, when the budget got cut, they interviewed these people and they said, I knew he was going to do it, but I didn't think he was going to do it to me. And that becomes the mindset of some of these dumbasses that vote like that, along with emotion. Like, it's never about the economy with MAGA and GOP. It's about emotion. I want to feel like the government, who's running the government, is hurting someone. That makes me feel good. And I'd rather feel good than rather take care of myself in the economy.
As long as they're hurting the people that I don't like, I don't really care that much if it's hurting me.
Right.
Almost.
Mhm.
It's like their hatred trumps their love. Oh God, I'm so sorry. No pun intended. I hate using that word. But like it literally, it's so scary how, and actually, one of my ex-friends who was MAGA tried to explain it to me actually before it was for this last election. So and I was like, why are you still MAGA? We saw what happened in his first term.
Mhm.
Why? Like, what's your actual reasoning? And it was the economy. And when I said, okay, so your main priority when you look at the state of the world is money. You value money above all else. That's what you're telling me. And then their rebuttal was, well, we all need money. So if the economy is shit, then we can't invest in all of the programs that you like. And Trump is going to restore the economy so that we can then focus on the issues that you want to deal with. That's not how government works. And it makes me think also of people who like to say that they're socially liberal and fiscally conservative.
Oh, they
Um,
just vote Republican.
the
Stop it.
rhinos and
Yes.
even the non-MAGAs who identify that way. It's like funding is what creates change. Money is the biggest motivator of change in our society. So if you're voting for someone who you think is going to benefit the economy, but is not going to put money and funding into programs that are already established and
Mhm.
already working in a lot of different areas of the country, what do you think how do you think he is going to help you? You know, it's this weird circular logic, but I really think that conversation I had with that prior friend was revealing to me that it was hatred and greed first. And
Mhm.
they would blatantly say to me, well, that doesn't affect me. So I'm not going to vote considering others. I'm going to vote for myself. And I said, and if everyone did that, what would our country look like? If everyone
Mhm.
only ever considered, how does this affect me? We would all be worse off because
Right.
by logic, that is hurting everyone. No matter where you are in the political spectrum with your identity, whatever, that mindset is the opposite of what creates a community, a society that works together. And we've talked about this too, like white people, black people, there's plenty of people who think we need to separate and it's just too far gone and we can't make it work. But us having these kinds of conversations and finding our common ground, I was actually thinking about this today. We have more in common than not,
Right.
you and I, way more in common. But if people were to just take a screen grab of this right now, they'd be like, these two people could not be more different in the US.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we're both in North Carolina. We've got roots in North Carolina. We went to the same
Mhm.
university at one point. We're politically extremely aligned. Like all
Mhm.
these different things that we're big into sports and all these different things. But again, from just first glance, people would put us in completely separate categories. And that is what we're trying to do here is bridge that gap and make people understand a united and diverse America is better for everyone, even the crazy billionaires. It creates
Mhm.
a better economy. It creates progress. And that's why I'll never understand people literally identifying as conservative when you could be progressive because
Right.
progress is in the word. No one wants to argue that progress is not a good thing. Everyone can get behind progress. Every company wants progress. Every nation wants progress. And then we go around saying we're progressives, and they're like,
Right.
"No, let's go back." Actually, and wait, sorry. I'm
Take
just
your
rolling
time.
right now.
Take your time.
I am so over the
Uh-oh.
term "Make America Great Again" because if you break it down, and
Yeah.
hey, if you're MAGA in the comments, I doubt we've got MAGA deep running around in this far into the video. But tell me a year. Tell me a year when we were great. Give me a date. And let's go back there. Let's see how
Well,
great it was.
let me play the role of MAGA. What some of them would love to sell you. We was great in 1852 when we didn't have government in our damn business. I had these niggers running around here taking care of my crops, and I could slip into the outhouse, get me a piece of that nigger meat, and then go back to bed, and my wife wouldn't know the difference. It was great for me as a white guy back then. Is that?
But
Oh,
they're telling on themselves by creating that as their slogan. You're telling the world with that phrase that you would rather go back in time, reverse progress, because it would benefit only you
right.
and not millions of other people who are also Americans. And you're telling me that you don't, I mean, and some of them will be like, that's not what I'm saying. No, you're telling me you don't support the civil rights movement. You're telling me you don't support the feminist movement. You're telling, like, do you want to? So if you say a time before the 1920s, you don't want women to vote? Did you not agree with women vote? Oh, so you don't agree with women voting? Got it.
No.
Like the women who say "Make America Great Again." Okay, so is your "Make America Great Again" the 50s when women couldn't open a credit card without a male signing? When women were imprisoned in the cult of domesticity? It truly, I'm still waiting on that date from a lot of people because they just love to say back in the day we were great. Back what day? What day?
I'll do you one
Segregation?
better.
Jim Crow?
Did, did you
Lynchings?
did you know in the state of North Carolina where we live, up until 2002, if you were married and you raped your wife, you couldn't prosecute. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. You're married, you rape your wife, or your wife rapes you, whichever one. So that I'm fair and equitable. You can't prosecute said spouse. And you want to go back to that?
Right. Like any conservatism anywhere in the world, I mean, yes, there's nuggets of wisdom in the past. There's
Right.
definitely things.
Right.
The New Deal. Yes. Yes. That's an America I'm here for. Let's dive into that stuff. But to me, that's progress that we just push the momentum of. That's not reverting back. And so I just think it's sad that we've gotten to a point where people can wholeheartedly say with their whole chest and no shame that they want to see an America like the old one. And we can point out things like women not being able to vote, Black people being enslaved, Native Americans being killed and pushed west.
Right.
And they'll say, what about it? You've just revealed your character to me.
Exactly.
And it's really hard for me actually, and it's nowadays it's mostly Republican people who say this, but the whole, oh man, we can disagree politically and still be friends. I can't tolerate it anymore. I've
Me
cut out
neither.
everyone in my life, and dating, I'm single, dating in Charlotte.
Is it real? Is it MAGA up there? Because MAGA guys, they can't get women, and so they keep starting all these
Male
different
loneliness epidemic, aka the lack of accountability epidemic, and the fuck around and find out epidemic. Y'all treat women like shit. You want to own women. And now that we have enough of a say in what we want, you're going to go and cry around and join these weird manosphere groups and just bitch instead of listening to women, figuring out why women are upset and changing your behavior.
And they're also bothered that you all are empowered now and with education and tools so that you don't have to be a handmaiden to them, and that bothers them. Like I'm married to a woman who is in society, has a job that's powerful. Do you see me? You see me crying? You see me worried? I look at it as our union can make greatness happen for everybody. I'm not intimidated by what my wife does. And so you get a lot of people who go into that And like I said earlier when we was having this discussion, they also want it to be a situation where women become Golden Corral buffet. If they go to the gym and you're fine and you're wearing tight clothes, it's pleated in your butt crack, they want to just walk up to you and say, I want to fuck you. Come on, get in this truck. Because we're living in Trump's America. I should be able to run up and pick whatever I want and get you in this truck.
And they think at one point that was enough.
Mhm.
And they also reduce women a lot to just sexual beings, to mothers, to whatever like
Right.
small category they want to put them in. And then a woman like me comes along and I've got opinions. I've got all the opinions and I've got a loud voice and I take up space.
Right.
And that makes a lot of them uncomfortable. And that's why work can be
Mhm.
hard because I still show my personality, but I have to hold it back a little bit. But when I'm out in public, man, it's fun. I love antagonizing MAGA. I love it. There was I mean, we don't know that he's MAGA, but all signs point to MAGA. There was a guy I was out at a bar. He took a chair out from underneath a girl. And again, this is the party that's like, we
What?
respect and take care of women and we open doors for our women. This girl was sitting, he comes up and I barely knew her, but she was sitting at my table. He comes up, he said, hey, that's my chair. And she's like, oh, okay. And he just pulls it out from under her, moves it over.
Mhm.
And there's other chairs available, but apparently he wanted that one. And I came up to him and I said,
Uh-oh.
hey. And he goes, oh, no. I have a girlfriend.
What?
Don't flatter yourself, honey. And I was like, oh, no. He was definitely like a meathead, like Andrew Tate
Yeah.
type.
Oh
And
my
I'm
God.
like, no. Don't flatter yourself. I just wanted to apologize because I didn't realize you had a condition. And he's like,
Oh
what
my
the fuck are you
God.
talking about? And I'm like, no, your condition with your legs. I had no idea that you couldn't stand for long periods of time. I saw you take that chair out from underneath that woman. And at first I was a little upset, but then I realized you can't stand for long periods of time without pain. And so I'm just sorry for passing that judgment on you. Nothing that a fragile man, there is nothing a fragile man like that hates more than being pitied and feeling condescension from a woman. And that just drives them crazy. It's frustrating, but it's kind of entertaining being in MAGA country and having free will, being a woman who can support myself. I no longer need to bow down to men in order to live the lifestyle that I want to. And so they should lean into that and say, wow, great. Now we know that the women that we're with want to be with us, not just because they're gaining economic advantages, not just
Right.
because they're gaining a voice in their community by marrying us or being associated with us. It should be a positive from the male perspective that women are choosing partners based on more than just necessity. And yet
Mhm.
they're crying and bitching about it. And it's just like, guys, it's not that hard. Just respect our own autonomy, respect that we have just as much say in politics and religion and all the things that you hold dear, and that we can disagree, but that doesn't mean that you can degrade me and use your masculinity as a weapon against me because I say
Right.
things you don't like. It's not 1950, and they really are upset. And it's a good example of equality feels like oppression if you are the oppressor. Uh,
Right. Right.
and I
Just like it's the same concept with men versus women. Like they feel like they are losing something because women are starting to
to
gain
gain things,
independence.
and we can also, there's a seat for everyone at the table. It's the same thing
Right.
with race issues. White people think that Black people gaining ground, Hispanic people coming here is taking the money that no, that's not actually how the economy works. If we all do great and we all contribute to each other, everyone will be better off. There is room at the table.
Right.
Unless you think that you should be one of the 10 people in the world who has 18 million times the wealth of everyone else, then maybe we can't agree on that. But pretty much everyone else can have a seat at the table if you're willing to reduce the wealth gap. We all can fit. In
Right.
fact, we need a middle class. We need more people to fit at that table instead of it being this extreme, of the uber wealthy, and it makes you really think about the French in the 1700s and kind of how that all went down, and
Right.
the guillotine or whatever, all that stuff. But
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you guys will be seeing Claire a whole lot more. And she speaks of the French. And as she talks about the French, I'm doing a video on Toussaint Louverture, who learned from Napoleon, took his ass down and came and liberated Haiti, as she speaks about the French. So be on the lookout for that. And post your comments here. Let us know what you think. Share my videos. And for those of you that have stuck with me as I'm transitioning from doing reviewing movies and TV shows to politics, because I just can't sit and let what's going on in the world happen. Because if you don't do politics, it damn sure is going to do you. And I just can't sit by. So thank you all so much for just being patient with me and helping me grow the political arm of my channel. Claire, are we allowed to have you back in maybe a week or so? Is that something we can make happen?
please, I hope I wasn't too all over the place. I tried to keep it focused, but man, there's so everything we're talking about is connected to everything we're talking about. And so it's so hard for me to stay on one topic, but it's so exciting. It's so fun. This is what I think about all day. And I'm just so grateful that you reached out to me and that we are doing this work, because I've felt so helpless living under this, what feels very tyrannical rule. And this is what democracy is for. This is what we should be using our freedom of speech for, is pushing these stories, pushing these ideas until enough people start listening, and hopefully they hop on this train with us, the train of progress. But yes, hey, anytime, any topic, I love, if there's one thing I love, it's to run this mouth of mine. So, and to opine.
Uh-oh. No, she didn't hit y'all with a big word. She said, opine. No, she didn't. Okay. Okay. Now, see, that's why y'all need to go to her TikTok. Go to that TikTok and let her know that you love her and support her. We look forward to having her back again. I'm going to say tentatively, I'm going to work on her to see if she can come back next Thursday so that you guys can enjoy her again. And that's going to do it for us. Don't forget to like the video, download the podcast. We are also on all your links for the podcast. Title of the podcast, you guys know, Politics of Being Black While Living in America, where we exchange with many people, many backgrounds, so that we can all try the best to come together and be little vessels of education for those that don't know. And until that next Sex is Hell video, we're out. All right. Now that was a good one. How